The suitcase on the bed wasn't hers. Sarai Bennett had been in Singapore for 4 days. She came through the front door at 11 at night, carry-on rolling behind her, the weight of the week still sitting behind her eyes. She stopped in the hallway. The bedroom light was on. An open bag on the mattress. Clothes she didn't own folded neatly on the chair she'd reupholstered herself 2 summers ago. Seo Hyunwoo stepped out of the kitchen, arms loose, eyes already set. The expression of a man who had decided something a while ago and was only now saying it out loud. Behind him, sounds from the kitchen. A cabinet. A glass. The quiet, confident sounds of a woman making herself at home in someone else's space. In the armchair by the window, the one Sarai had ordered from a craftsman in Busan and waited 8 weeks for, Mrs. Seo Hai-rin sat with her eyes on her hands. She didn't look up. Hyunwoo said, "We need to talk." Sarai looked at him. "Era is going to be staying here." A pause he had planned. "I need you to pack what's yours and go." 3 seconds. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't ask why. She walked past him to the bedroom, opened the desk drawer, took out the folder first, mortgage records, bank transfers, for years of receipts organized by date. Her passport, her hard drive, the small photograph from the nightstand. Herself at 7 years old, taken by a care worker who had been kind. The only image she had of herself before 12. She did not look at him when she came back out. She moved through her own apartment one last time like a woman who knows exactly which things are hers. She zipped the bag, walked back through the hallway. At the front door, she paused, removed her house key from the ring, set it on the entry table, the one she had chosen, in the home she had paid for. She adjusted the strap on her shoulder. She left. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just left. That was his first mistake. Now, before we go deeper, if this story already has your attention, take a second to like this video and subscribe to Forbidden Love Stories. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We read every single one. Okay, let's keep going. Sarai grew up in the Georgia state system. 3 care homes before she was 15. For schools. She aged out at 18 with a duffel bag and a plastic sleeve she kept in every bag, in every move, in every new room she was assigned to. Inside it, her birth certificate, her records, every piece of paper that proved she existed. She had learned early that without documentation, you can be argued out of your own history. At 23, she moved to Seoul on a company transfer. 2 years became a decade because she was precise and better at her job than most people around her. She met Seo Hyunwoo through mutual colleagues in Itaewon. He was 30. He listened closely, following up on things she'd said, circling back, remembering. She wasn't used to that. He was from Cheongju, modest family. His father had passed when he was 25. He had come to Seoul with the same engine Sarai knew well. Nothing was waiting for him if he didn't build it himself. She recognized that in him. It felt like safety. It wasn't. He introduced her to his mother 5 months in. Mrs. Seo Hai-rin arrived first at the small restaurant in Mapogu. A compact woman. Still. The kind of still that comes from having lived through things. She looked at Sarai across the table, really looked, then reached over and held her hand in both of hers. "You have carried things," she said, her Korean careful and slow. "I can see it." Sarai couldn't speak. "Come, eat. We talk." That was the beginning. Sundays became theirs. Hai-rin cooked and Sarai learned beside her, asking questions, making mistakes, being corrected with patience and no ego. One Sunday, making doenjang jjigae together, Hai-rin set down her spoon and looked at Sarai steadily. A woman who builds her man is building herself. Not a suggestion, a belief. Said the way you say something you've lived and found to be true. Sarai wrote it on her phone that evening. She was 29 years old. She had no mother to call, no family anywhere. And she had this woman, warm, specific, present, who cooked beside her on Sunday mornings and said things that felt like they had been waiting for exactly her. She would have followed that advice into the sea. Hyunwoo's business idea took shape over 3 months of evenings at his kitchen table. Boutique hospitality consulting. Luxury Korean hotel brands needed international positioning, and nobody was doing it well. The concept was sound. The capital was zero. Sarai listened, asked the questions he hadn't thought to ask himself, built the financial model quietly over several weeks, filling the structural gaps he kept talking past. She handed it to him on a Thursday. He stared at it for a long time. This is exactly what I was trying to say. You understood it better than I did. For months later, she transferred 42 million won into his new business account. For years of savings. Packed lunches. Secondhand everything. Vacations she kept promising herself later. She put those plans in a drawer. A woman who builds her man is building herself. Hiren said that Sunday, when Sarai told her. She held Sarai's gaze when she said it, like something being confirmed between them. The first client signed 8 weeks after launch. The second came 3 months later. By end of year 1, CO Consulting had a margin that surprised even Hyunwoo. The back-end held, the financial systems, the proposal architecture, the client reporting infrastructure, because Sarai had built all of it. Hyunwoo got attention quickly. He moved through rooms like he'd been doing this for decades. He was quoted in trade publications, invited to speak at panels, introduced at industry events as a self-made success story. Sarai was not in the photographs. She told herself that was fine. They married in year 2. Small ceremony, 60 people, a restaurant in Hongdae. Hiren sat in the front row and wept. She held Sarai's hand afterward. You are ours now. You understand? You are ours. Sarai's side of the room had 11 guests. No family. Empty chairs. The people from work who had quietly become the closest thing to it. She was the happiest she'd ever been. The Gangnam apartment came 18 months into the marriage. Hyunwoo found it. High floor. City views. The kind of address that announces something in certain conversations. He presented it like a decision already made. She ran the numbers. Tight, but possible. Her name was not on the deed. A technicality, she was told. The mortgage application process. Risk categorization. Between people building a life together, these things sort themselves out. Her account paid the mortgage for the next 3 years. Month 1, he said a client payment was delayed. Month 2 the same. By month 4 she had set up an automatic transfer and stopped asking. She furnished the apartment herself. 3 weekends to find the right sofa. A dining table from a craftsman in Hongdae. Amber curtains she'd spent months imagining. She tiled the foyer herself one weekend while Hyunwoo was at a conference in Jeju. She redesigned the kitchen alone while he was in Busan. Drew the layout herself. Managed every installation weekend. Talked the countertop supplier down 20%. He came home to a finished kitchen and said it looked great. The way you say something looks great when you're already thinking about the next thing. By year 3, the business was profitable on its own. She stepped back. 2 promotions at her own firm. Her name referenced without prompting. The distance arrived gradually. Then suddenly, later evenings, a presence at dinner that felt managed, like he was sitting with her and somewhere else at the same time. His phone face down on tables where it used to sit face up. Carried to the bathroom before charging. And a warmth that had appeared out of nowhere. Soft, deliberate, the kind of warmth that is actually guilt in a better coat. She noticed. She didn't ask. Not yet. A dinner in February. She said something small and funny, and he laughed too quickly. Too wide. Too warm. The performance of a man overcompensating for something he hadn't said. A morning in March. She came out of the bathroom, and he was standing at the window. Back to her. Voice low on the phone. He heard her footsteps, and the call ended. Smooth, immediate. He said he'd been checking in on a client timeline. She said okay. People who have nothing to hide don't end calls like that. She didn't say it. She filed it. Then a Sunday call from Hiren. Same as always. Easy. Warm. At the end, a woman who builds her man is building herself, Saraya. Whatever you're carrying right now, keep going. The investment always comes back. Sarai sat with the phone in her hand after they hung up. She thought, what does she know? She found out on a Tuesday in March, the following year. She was cross-referencing expense records, a habit she had never dropped. A hotel booking outside Seoul. 2 names on the reservation. A spa. A dinner for 2 charged to his personal card on a night he had told her he was at a client dinner in Itaewon. She sat at the desk in the second bedroom. 11 minutes. She could hear the city. She could hear herself breathing. She opened the desk drawer. Took out the folder. Mortgage statements. Transfer records. Receipts organized by date. The system of a woman who had understood since she was 18 that undocumented history is history someone else can rewrite. She placed the hotel statement in the folder. Closed the drawer. She went to the kitchen. She made dinner. She waited for him to come home. He arrived at 9:30. Client meeting ran late, he said. She set a plate in front of him. She said nothing. She watched. She documented. She made one call, a lawyer, brief consultation. Notes in the folder. He told her on a Wednesday evening in October. He came home early. Standing in the living room near the dining table she'd carried up from Hongdae. The posture of a man who had made a decision and needed it to become real by being spoken. He said Era's name. Said they had been together for almost a year. Said a clean break was best for both of them. Sarai stood in the kitchen doorway. She looked at him. Then at the amber curtains. The stone countertop. The foyer tile. She said, I see. He said he was sorry. He said it the way people say things they've rehearsed long enough that the feeling has been practiced out of them. She walked to the second bedroom. Took the folder. Then her passport, her laptop, the photograph of herself at 7 years old. She packed without urgency. She came back through the hallway. She slid her house key off the ring and placed it on the entry table. She left. No scene. No speech. Not a single tear in front of him. That was the whole point. She called her friend Nadia from the street. Nadia arrived in 18 minutes, said nothing, put the bag in the car. At her apartment, Sarai laid everything out in sequence. When she finished, Nadia looked at her for a moment. You kept the records. Everything. For years. Then you're not starting from nothing. I know. She got up the next morning. That was the part nobody saw. How quickly she got up. 2 days later, she called Hyrin. Hyrin answered on the second ring. She sounded measured, warm, but managed. Like a woman who had already had another conversation before this one. I want to talk, Sarai said. A pause. Saraya. Her voice was gentle. You know I care for you. But my son hasn't been happy. He needs something different now. Someone who fits where he's going. A beat. He deserves better than this situation. They exchanged a few more words. But the conversation was already over. Both of them knew it. Sarai hung up. She sat with the phone in her lap and thought about Sundays. A spoon set down. You are ours now. A woman who builds her man is building herself. She sat with it. Then she opened her laptop, made a list, and began. The 2 years that followed were not dramatic. 8 months in, she made deputy director. 14 months in, she was recruited onto the investment committee of a mid-sized Seoul private equity group. Her name began appearing in the quiet way that actually means something. Referenced, recommended, sought. She moved to a smaller apartment in Songdong-gu. Safe precisely. Stopped going near Gangnam. What she didn't know yet was that CO Consulting had quietly started to crack. Without Sarai's financial architecture holding the back end together, the seams began to show. Client reporting inconsistencies. A renewal that slipped. A proposal that failed due diligence on questions that should have been answered before submission. Hyun-woo was still visible, still invited to panels. But underneath, things were shifting. That was when Era became essential. Era was the second daughter of the Yu family. Old soul money. The kind of family whose name appeared on buildings and whose connections were inherited with the same ease as everything else. She had been educated in London, spoke 3 languages, and moved through the upper social tier like she'd been designed for it. She was 26 and genuinely principled. She believed Hyun-woo completely. The wife who hadn't kept pace. The patient man who had finally made a painful choice. She had no reason not to believe him. And her family's name opened doors his reputation had slowly been closing. She introduced him to her father's associates. A board seat at an affiliated hospitality group. She stabilized what was quietly becoming unstable. Without knowing it, she was doing exactly what Sarai had done. He had never changed. He had simply upgraded the arrangement. 18 months after Sarai left, a funding proposal arrived in her inbox. Standard intake through the committee. Assigned by sector. Boutique hospitality consulting expansion. New market entry, projected returns, a financial model attached. She recognized the model's architecture immediately. Not because it was the same as what she had built years ago. Because it was trying to be, and failing in the exact places Hyun-woo had always failed before she filled them in. Lead applicant, CO Hyun-woo. Referral, Yu Family Network. She read the full proposal. Set it on her desk for 1 day. Then she wrote her assessment. The fundamentals were weak. The due diligence package had gaps. The projections weren't supported by the operational structure. Her recommendation, pass. She submitted it. She did not mention who the applicant was. The rejection went out through the firm's standard process. No personal note. No explanation beyond the language used for every declined submission. She moved on to the next file. In her 16th month, she found the apartment. Fourth floor. Refurbished building in Songdong-gu. The kitchen window faced east and held the morning light in a way that made her go quiet mid-sentence during the showing. She stood there and let the agent wait. Exposed brick in the living room. Counter space that made sense. A second bedroom she didn't need but kept because it felt like a promise she was making to herself. Her name went on every document. She spent 2 months making it hers before anyone came over. She tested paint and patches and lived with them in different lights before committing. She went back to the craftsman in Hongdae. He recognized her. "You're back. Different table. For a space that's mine this time." She planted herbs on the kitchen windowsill. Rosemary, basil, mint that immediately tried to take over everything. She hung forest green curtains, deliberately new, a color that had never appeared in any previous version of her life. She sent 30 invitations to a housewarming on the last Saturday of November. She did not send one to Seo Hyunwoo. He found out anyway. A mutual contact mentioned it on a Thursday. Hyunwoo heard the word and constructed a picture immediately. Something small, Sarai making the best of a smaller life. He would walk through. He would be gracious. He told Era. She hesitated. "We weren't invited." "She won't mind," he said. No pause. Total certainty. They drove to Songdong-gu. Pulled up outside a building with warm light in the upper windows and the low sound of conversation and music coming from inside. Through the glass, people moving through a room that had, even from the street, a quality Era registered without yet naming. Hyunwoo pressed the buzzer. Sarai opened the door. She looked at him. At Era. Her expression didn't shift. She stepped back and held the door open. "Come in," she said. In the kitchen doorway, Nadia saw Hyunwoo's face and went still for exactly half a second. Then she picked up the nearest bottle and started refilling glasses. Sarai touched her arm as she passed. 1 second of contact. Everything said. Hyunwoo moved through the apartment the way he moved through most rooms, like a man assessing what belongs to him. He passed the foyer. The brass hook with her keys on it. The living room with 30 people at ease. Music at the right volume. Food appearing before anyone noticed it was running low. Everything placed with intention. Everything working. A few people noticed him arrive. Minji, near the window, recognized him and said nothing. She picked up her glass and watched. Across the room, a colleague of Sarai's named Daewon tracked Hyunwoo's movement and exchanged a glance with the woman beside him. No words. Just the silent recalibration of people who have heard a story for 2 years and are now seeing a character from it walk through a door uninvited. Nadia refilled glasses. She kept her back to the room. She was listening to everything. He stood in the center of it. The room was making an argument, and he had walked straight into it. He spoke before it could finish. "Very nice." His voice carrying just enough. "You've done well for yourself." A woman named Minji near the window turned to look at him. She didn't try to hide what was on her face. He moved further in. He picked up a small ceramic bowl from the shelf near the dining table. Turned it in his hands. Casual. Proprietary. You always had the eye for this. The aesthetics. The finishing touches. A slight pause. The financial side. The real architecture of building something. That was always more complex. The room went quiet. Not silent, but quiet. The kind of quiet that collects. Sarai stood at the kitchen entrance with a glass of water. She looked at him. Steady. Unhurried. "The finances were simple," she said. Her voice carried without effort. 34 months of mortgage payments from my account. 42 million won transferred before your first client signed. The financial model for your first 3 pitches, built by me. She paused. "I kept everything, Hyunwoo. Since I was 18. It's a habit." Still, the whole room. He reset his expression. "I came to celebrate. I'm not here to relitigate the past." She set her glass on the counter. On the shelf behind him, beside the ceramic bowl he'd just touched, sat a folder. The same folder she'd carried out of the Gangnam apartment 2 years ago. He hadn't noticed it when he picked up the bowl. He noticed it now. She watched him see it. Watched his eyes track from the bowl to the folder. Watched him go still. "You might recognize that," she said. He looked at the folder. Then at her. She walked over. Opened it. Pulled out a single document. Set it on the table between them. A rejection letter. Standard letterhead. Investment committee seal. Date. 4 months ago. His breathing changed. He stared at the document. Then at her. Your funding proposal came across my desk, Sarai said. Quiet. Even. Assigned by sector. I sit on an investment committee now. Nobody moved. She didn't elaborate. She just let him read. Let him see his own name on the applicant line. Let him see the committee's decision in clean, formal language. He looked up. That was your assessment. Flat now. Careful. It was the committee's decision. I gave my recommendation. He stared at her. The proposal had structural gaps. The due diligence was incomplete. The projections weren't supported by the operational model. She looked at him steadily. The same concerns I raised before I left. You told me I was being overcautious. The quiet in the room had changed texture. Not just tension now. Understanding, arriving. You told people for 2 years that I contributed nothing, Sarai said. You told colleagues I was a passenger. You told Era you had built everything. That she was coming into a life you had made. She looked directly at Era. She believed you because she had no other version. She moved into a home paid for by my account, a business built on my savings, and thought it was yours. Because you told her it was. Era hadn't moved. My name isn't on the Gangnam deed. But my account paid that mortgage for 34 months. My savings started the business. The kitchen Era came home to. I designed it while you were in Busan. Sarai glanced at the room. I'm not angry. I'm accurate. Era spoke. Quietly. Each word arriving just before she said it. The 42 million won. She looked at him. Was that yours? He said nothing. She looked at the room around her. The herbs in their pots. The green curtains. The dining table. Every surface bearing the evidence of someone's careful attention. She thought about the kitchen in Gangnam she had complimented, and he had accepted the compliment on without correction. The terrace garden she had watched slowly come apart for 12 months because she didn't know what had been planted there or what any of it needed. She thought about the proposal. Her family name on the referral. Her father's network leveraged. The door opened. And still, someone at a desk in this city had read it and written, insufficient. No personal note. No explanation. Just the standard language for a submission that didn't hold up. She looked at him. You didn't choose me because you loved me. Her voice was even. Certain. You chose me because I made sense. The right name. The right family. The right access. A beat. Just like you chose her. Silence. Complete. He understood, in that moment, what had just happened. The room had watched him. 30 people had watched him walk in with total confidence and lose the narrative he had built over 2 years, piece by piece, in under 10 minutes. He had come here believing he would be the most important person in the room. He was not, and there was nothing left to say that would change that. His jaw tightened. He set the ceramic bowl down carefully on the shelf, exactly where he had picked it up. He looked at Era. She was not looking back at him. She was looking at Sarai, and whatever she had needed to understand was already settled behind her eyes. She reached down. She picked up her bag. She took one step toward the door. She did not wait for him. He straightened. He tried to locate the ease he had arrived with. It wasn't there anymore. We're leaving, he said, to no one in particular now, since Era was already at the door. Nadia's voice came from the kitchen entrance, quiet and final. You came here because someone mentioned there was a room full of people, and you assumed you were the most important person in it. He didn't respond. He walked out. Sarai held the door. She didn't watch him go. She watched Era pass through the doorway. Their eyes met for 1 second. I only had his version, Era said. Controlled. Clear. I didn't know there was another one. I know, Sarai said. I know you didn't. The door closed. The room exhaled. Someone laughed. Not cruel. Just the release of held breath finding an exit. Minji set her glass down and gave Sarai one slow, deliberate nod. Nadia appeared at her shoulder, a refilled glass in hand. You kept everything, Nadia said. Since I was 18, Sarai said. The evening found its shape again, warmer than before, the way a room always feels after something true has been said inside it. People went back to their conversations. Someone turned the music up slightly. Glasses refilled. The space breathed. Sarai's last guest left just before midnight. She stood in the open doorway and watched the elevator close. Then she turned back into her apartment. A few glasses to the kitchen. The tap on, then off. She stood at the east-facing window for a moment. Soul outside, lit and continuous. She thought about Hyren. She let herself. Sundays. Steam rising from a pot. A spoon set down on the counter. A saying handed to her like a compass. Followed for 4 years without questioning where it led. She stood in her own kitchen. The herbs on the windowsill. Rosemary holding. Basil growing low and full. Mint still pushing toward the edge of its pot. She had planted all of it. She had learned what each one needed. She put the kettle on. Made tea. Took it to the living room and settled into the chair she had known was right from the first moment she sat in it. The room was quiet around her. Warm. Entirely hers. Every document in the desk drawer confirmed what this was. Every plant on the sill. Every key on the brass hook by the front door. She finished her tea. She turned off the lamp. She rested her hand against the wall beside the key hook on her way to bed, just for a second, just to feel how solid it was. Then she went to bed. If you've ever loved someone who only needed you until they didn't, or given everything you had and been told it meant nothing the moment someone more convenient came along, you already know what this story is really about. And if you've ever been the person who only had one version and walked into a room and realized that version was never really yours, leave your story in the comments. We read every single one. If this one stayed with you, like it, share it, and subscribe to Forbidden Love Stories. You don't want to miss what's coming next.